Hi everybody, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead and from Maria Tells a Story. I started a new YouTube. My grandson helped me, but I haven't been able to figure out how to download it yet, so he's helping me with that. And hopefully soon I'll be able to. So we're continuing reading The Legend of the White Raccoon. It's a DJ Dillon series book. Well, last time there was definitely a big problem that happened. And then something else happened. Alfred wasn't at church. And when DJ went to check on him, the whole family was gone. So let's go and find out on chapter 8, where is Alfred? A few minutes later, his insides painful with the knowledge he had just learned, DJ was again on his way to Alfred's house. Brother Paul had volunteered to drive DJ. He sat miserably in the front seat and stared unseeingly out the windshield. DJ's mind was whirling in desperation. Should I tell Brother Paul anything? Sky had warned me to say nothing, but Alfred knows everything I do except about the picture on the milk carton. It'd be okay to talk to him. What about Brother Paul? The big lay preacher drove in silence. He seemed to sense his passengers' deep inner conflict. The boy closed his eyes a moment. His lips moved silently. Lord, what should I do? He waited a minute. His eyes closed. The words from Brother Paul's sermon leaped into the boy's mind. In all things give thanks. That was crazy. DJ shook his head, still not knowing what to do. He felt the car slow down. DJ opened his eyes. Brother Paul spoke for the first time. Well now, DJ, I do believe that's your grandpa walking along the sidewalk. Is that dog with him? The boy glanced through the windshield. Grandpa Dillon was moving along with just a hint of a limp from his arthritic hip. The new dog was happily bouncing along beside him. Grandpa found him this morning, DJ explained. A stray. No collar or anything. Probably somebody dumped him off by the highway. Skinny as an old horse. Brother Paul asked, should I offer them a lift? DJ shook his head. Grandpa's just out for another walk. And I really do need to go see Alfred. Okay, DJ. Is your stepmother, going to allow Mr. Dillon to keep a dog? I mean, what with her being so allergic and all. DJ didn't answer. He didn't know. Ordinarily, he would have stopped and found out because Grandpa had surely mentioned the idea to Mom, but DJ was too anxious to see if Alfred was home yet. As the sedan pulled up even with the old man, he turned around. DJ saw Grandpa grin start as he recognized Brother Paul's car. They were passing Grandpa when he suddenly realized they weren't going to stop. He raised his Irish shillelagh and called out, "Hey!" The driver touched his brakes. "Sorry, DJ, but if I don't stop, it'll be downright unneighborly of me, and your grandfather might not understand." "But I've got to see Alfred." "I'll only be a minute, okay?" The boy sighed. He could run on ahead, but he'd never get to Alfred's house before Brother Paul could say a few words to Grandpa and then drive on. "Okay," the boy said softly. He rolled down his window, the one on his side. Grandpa came up and stuck his head inside the car. "Well now, howdy, Brother Paul. Giving my grandson a little ride to see that the pretty trees, are you?" "No, Caleb. I was just driving him over to his friend's house." "Get out and see my new dog." Grandpa spoke across DJ to the driver. "Gonna be with me when I move out on my own again." DJ looked pleadingly at Brother Paul. He met the boy's eyes and nodded understandingly. "Well, thank you kindly, Caleb, but DJ's kind of in a hurry." Grandpa waved the cane in the air. "Kids are always in a hurry. Won't hurt DJ none to wait a minute while you looks at my dog. Ain't that right, DJ?" The boy couldn't explain, and he couldn't expect his grandfather to understand if he didn't agree. He took a deep breath. "Well, just a quick look, please." Brother Paul dropped his hand on the boy's left shoulder. "I'll be quick as I can. DJ, you just sit still." Grandpa was in one of his talkative moods. DJ realized as the big lay preacher got out of the car and walked around to the curb. DJ fretted, gazing out the windshield, trying to think about what he should do. He closed his eyes, seeing the milk carton again. There were 2 pictures. He could see one of them really well in his mind. He hadn't taken time to read what was written on the panel underneath, but there was a phone number, an 800 number, DJ remembered. That's a toll-free one. DJ wasn't sure what he should do, except he had to talk to Alfred. The kids at school didn't call him the brain for nothing. Alfred was always full of bits of information about things. Besides, Alfred already knew about the mean man, Sky, the boy Cleotus, and the white raccoon. So it'd be okay to talk to Alfred if he was home. DJ glanced at Grandpa. He was talking a mile a minute, gently tapping the stray dog with the tip of his cane and bragging about his finer points. Usually DJ would have smiled because the dog didn't really have one good thing anybody could say about him, except he liked Grandpa. The boy cleared his throat. "Grandpa, I've got to get to Alfred's real fast. You've shown Brother Paul enough about that dog for now, haven't you?" The old man's pale blue eyes opened in surprise. "Well, now, DJ, you're sure rushing this visit with the preacher. And you ain't so much as asked me how your stepmother took to me asking her about keeping the dog until I can move into my own place." "Grandpa, I just can't explain right now, but I've absolutely got to get to Alfred's house." The old man started to protest, but Brother Paul interrupted quietly. "Now, Caleb, I'd be right proud to sit and talk dogs some more, but I plumb promise to get your grandson to his friend's house pronto. It might be important." Grandpa didn't want to accept that, DJ realized, but the big preacher grinned and said he'd come over later and finish the conversation. In a moment, Brother Paul was back under the steering wheel. He apologized and drove rapidly through the main part of town toward the outskirts. DJ was so impatient to see Alfred that he sighed with relief when Brother Paul steered the sedan into the paved road. He eased into the driveway leading past the little store to the Milfords. The big man says, "Look like we timed it just right, DJ. Alfred's folks are just coming out of the store. See 'em?" "Yes, please stop here. Alfred's probably with them." The big man automatically parked the car, cut the wheels to the curb, and set the handbrake. It's also called the emergency brake. In the mountains, that was the only safe thing to do so cars wouldn't slip out of gear and go rolling down the hill. DJ was out of the vehicle and running towards Mr. and Mrs. Milford before Brother Paul got his car door open. Alfred's mother was a pleasant woman with sad brown eyes. Her mouse-colored hair was parted in the middle and tied back in a bun. She wore thick glasses like her son. She looked rather prim and proper, like an old-fashioned schoolteacher. Her husband worked on the green chain gang at the mill. That's somebody that they'll have a long conveyor belt where the lumber goes, the boards go by, and they might have to flip them or move them in some way. And when the boards are called green, that's when they're fresh cut and they're heavier then. So you have to be pretty strong. Alfred's still inside? DJ called, motioning towards the little store. John Milford looked surprised. Why, no. Isn't he with you? DJ stopped short. With me? Yes, Mr. Milford replied, frowning and leaning down to look into the boy's eyes. He left early this morning to meet you at Sunday school. DJ swallowed hard, hearing Brother Paul walking up behind him. Mrs. Milford asked sharply, You mean my Alfred didn't go to services with you today? DJ turned to look up at the big preacher. He gently laid a ham-sized hand on the boy's shoulder. My wife said Alfred was absent from her Sunday school class. Mrs. Milford's hands flew to her mouth. Oh, no! Oh, no, she whispered. Her husband slipped his arm around her waist, but he looked straight at DJ. You haven't seen Alfred all day? DJ shook his head and tried to swallow the scared feeling that was choking him. No, I haven't. I came by a while ago, but nobody was home. Mr. Milford explained we drove our little son Ralph over to spend the day with his grandparents in Red Dog. Alfred had told us he'd probably go home with you for lunch, and we could pick him up later at your house, DJ. Alfred's mother leaned forward and looked closely into DJ's eyes. You're not fooling me, are you, DJ? When he shook his head, she turned to her husband, her voice almost in a shriek. My Alfred's disappeared! Whoa. I wonder where Alfred is. And I hope that it doesn't have anything to do with that Sky Man. Well, we'll find out more tomorrow. Tomorrow will be chapter 9. I want to say I love you. I really do. And even more importantly, God loves you. He always will. It's Sabbath now. It's Friday night. And all the work for the day's done. And tomorrow I get the day off. I made a little soup for tomorrow and some Jell-O and a cake. So that's what we'll be eating tomorrow. I hope that very soon I'll have my new channel going, Maria Tells a Story. But even though my grandson Kirk from Perry's Penguin on YouTube got it going for me, I haven't been able to figure out how to download on it. So everything's going on this channel now, but that's okay. So I just want to say, have a wonderful night, a wonderful Sabbath, and I will be telling you more on this story tomorrow.